How do you know when your relationship is in trouble? I mean, sort of sending out a SOS or a flare up in the sky. How do you recognize the beginning of trouble within your relationship? Because a lot of people recognize it, but typical red flag syndrome, they ignore it. They ignore it because one, they're hoping that it will go away, it will resolve itself, or two, they don't have to deal with it at all. Who wants to confront the issues within a relationship? Nobody does, but very few people recognize the need for confrontation when before it becomes an avalanche. By the time it becomes an avalanche, then you're calling me, and I'm fine. I don't mind helping at all. I love my clients. I love working with people. But here's how you recognize some of the signs that are indicative of the fact that there's something wrong in your relationship. When somebody stops listening or stops responding, that's a big red flag. That's like one of those red flags that screams like, what's wrong here? You know, the person's not listening to you. They're like, yeah. Uh-huh. And you're like, you get so used to the uh-huhs and the yeah, because at that moment you're self-absorbed. You're not thinking about this other person in front of you shutting down or stonewalling. You're thinking, oh, they're not as engaged as they usually are or usually were. But the truth of the matter is, when you stop listening or start responding in a relationship, that's a big red flag, because that's telling you that the other person has had enough, or the other person is not paying enough attention to the fact that you've had enough. Another big sign of relationship chaos or relationship disintegration is having no empathy. Telling somebody a story about, your pain or a friend's pain or a family member's pain or some kind of pain, and that person not saying anything at all or not responding accordingly or the way you expect, and you're thinking this person's insensitive or this person doesn't care about me. In those moments, that's another red flag, because you're like, was this always the case, or are you now noticing that this person lacks empathy when it comes to you specifically? That's a big one. Another one I have here is not having any expectations. You're talking to your significant other or your partner or whomever you're in a relationship with, and you're laying out your plans and your goals and your action list, and the person's like, yeah, it sounds good, or yeah, do whatever you want, that's fine with me. And then you realize after you do it, it wasn't fine with them. It wasn't fine with them because they don't care. They've checked out. They're like, you can do whatever you want. It doesn't affect me. I don't care about you anymore. I am in self-preservation mode because you put me there, or something you did took me off to the point where I don't care about your plans. If you don't care about me, why should I care about your plans? A lot of times people really participate in self-absorption. You become so self-absorbed that you stop seeing the person that you're in a relationship with. You start recognizing that this person is a part of you instead of apart from you. Let me say that again. You start thinking of this person as apart from you instead of them being a part of you. And that's what the foundation of a relationship is: recognizing that the other person is there, understanding their significance in your relationship, understanding that you both are partners and that it is a symbiotic relationship. But the moment these things start happening, your partner's shutting down, they're not listening, they're not responding, there's no empathy, your expectations are shared, your goals are shared, and they're non-responsive, you should be like, ding, 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 ding. You should start having a real conversation, an honest to goodness conversation about what got them there, or what's happening in the relationship that is forcing them to respond in this way. Another one is you become competitive. Does that sound familiar to anyone? I have a competitive nature. I'll be the first to admit. When I was playing Monopoly, I was the banker in Monopoly, and I'm not saying anything else, but I was the banker in Monopoly, and I'm very competitive. And my children stopped playing with me eventually because they realized, hey, mom maybe should not be the banker. But how many of you are in relationships and you start finding yourself competing with your partner? You feel like the need to outdo your partner. What's that about? Let me tell you what that's about. That's about you seeing this person not as an equal, not as somebody that you can share things with, but someone who put you in that position in the first place where you felt you had to be competitive with them in order to gain their respect, their trust, or even their approval. If you feel like you have to do these things and compete with your partner to get approval or acceptance or any of those things, then you need to stop for a second and realize this is not the kind of relationship it should be, or this is not the relationship that as it should continue. You need to put a stop to that competitive nature. And some people are naturally competitive, and relationships start like that. It's like, oh, it's cool. You know, when you start on a relationship, you're like, this is cool. You know, he's jealous of me. He's burning a car for me. Yeah, it's cool until you realize it's not cool. It's the same thing with being competitive. Being competitive in a relationship is not cool only when it comes to certain things. But I mean, like sports, in sports, you're not going to run faster than me. That's kind of cool. But competitive when it comes to job, income, or showing up and saying, you know, I did this better than you and you're not as good as me, that puts a relationship on edge. It also can destroy the fabric of the relationship. Another one is feeling like, you know, you're sleeping with the enemy. If you have to wake up and every time you wake up next to this person, you have a certain amount of angst or distaste in your mouth, or you feel like you're not safe with your partner, that's more than a red flag. That's like all the red flags in one. It's like, why are you sleeping with this person? Why are you next to this person if you don't feel safe? If your security is threatened, then that's the biggest red flag, because you didn't get with this person so you could be unsafe, right? You left the world, chose a partner not to be unsafe. You chose a partner because you want a certain level of security. You want to feel a certain level of comfort with that person. You want to be able to share your emotions, your thoughts, your feelings, and everything with this individual. And then you wake up and you're like, you're afraid. You're afraid for your safety. You're afraid because you don't feel secure. All these feelings that you're having are not normal. They're not normal, especially within the context of a relationship. So that's a big red flag, and it's something that needs to be addressed within your relationship. Another one, and the biggest one, is no trust. How can you not trust the person you're with? You know how many times people come to me and we talk about, you know, going through another person's telephone, or, you know, going through their social media. Social media is a big breakup relationship factor for a lot of people, especially this generation, not just this generation, relationships. But if you have to get to the place where you don't trust someone, then you have to stop and have an honest to goodness conversation. You have to talk about the behavior that's prompting the distrust instead of continue the action that promotes the distrust. The conversation needs to happen about, well, here's how I feel, and this is why I feel, and I don't like the fact that you do this, or I would prefer you do that. If that conversation is never had, and you continue doing the actions that promote further distrust, you're just propagating, you know, the whole bad behavior in a relationship and the whole breakdown of your relationship. It is best to approach these molehills before they become mountains. And a lot of times people are non-confrontational because they do not want to confront the issues that could potentially end their relationship. When is it good? When is it ever a good time not to speak up? Ask yourself that question, because the longer and the more time you take not speaking up about the issues in your relationship that are bothering you, they do become a mountain. And by the time they become a mountain, then you have to chip away at that mountain over a period of time in order to get back to the status where you were when you first met. Understand this, relationships are a lot of work. And the one thing that really is a big red flag is the inability to compromise. For me, out of the 4 C's, you know, commitment, communication, compromise, and compatibility, compromise is by far the number one thing that a healthy relationship needs. If you cannot compromise, and I mean, I think about this all the time, right? You have people who are committed in the relationship. They've been together for 20, 40, 50 years in a relationship, and they don't know how to communicate. They're incompatible, and they don't know how to compromise. So commitment is one aspect that's needed for a relationship, but it's not the end all be all of everything. But if you have the ability to compromise, if you have the ability to say, I want a partnership. I don't just want a marriage. I don't just want a relationship with this person. I want a partnership. I'm looking for a helpmate, and I'm looking for someone who can relate to me and understand that what I'm trying to build here is a partnership. Then that whole aspect of compromise is understood. Compromise is like having a win-win. You both get what you want and you both are happy for it, and you both have worked together in order to do so. For me, compromise is everything. It's like having, you know, a bologna sandwich with cheese instead of a bologna sandwich with just mayo. My children said I don't make good sandwiches. That's why I use that analogy. But compromise is big. So let's recap. So when you see your partner, you know, stop withdrawing because this is somebody who is not communicating anymore, they're not listening, they're not responding, big red flag. If they're not having any empathy or they don't care about your goals or your expectations while you're trying to discuss it with them, they've checked out. If, you know, they become competitive, it's more of they see you more as an enemy and not so much a partner. They're disengaged and they're doing their own thing. Red flag. When you start feeling like you're sleeping with the enemy, you're not safe, no security, that is big, you know, that's something you have to monitor. And when there's no trust, when you feel that someone has done something to violate your trust and you in turn do something to violate theirs, it is like a domino effect. The dominoes just keep on falling down. The moment someone violates your trust, the moment someone does something to make you not trust them, address the issue. If it's difficult to address the issue, then get a mediator. Find someone who can help you communicate, you know, the distresses that are occurring in your relationship. But do not ignore them. Do not pretend like they can be swept under the rug, and understand anything that's swept under the rug can also trip you up later on. As always, my name is Ingrid Felton. Thank you for visiting my YouTube channel. Thank you for subscribing to the videos. Thank you for liking the videos. Thank you for your comments. I hope that you continue to comment and continue to support me as I continue to do these videos that hopefully will help you in your relationships. These are the things to avoid. These are the things to pay attention to. These are the red flags that you should look for in order to have a healthy or foster a healthy relationship. As always, have a great day. Bye.